Hello everyone, this is video 3 of the series of building a Prusa Mendel. I've got a lot to show you. Of course, I've put together the heated print bed. All I did was take the Y slide and mount aluminum, screw it through, and then the attachment points for the heated bed, run M3 bolts through it, and then thread the aluminum so you can unscrew it and screw it to get a level for this bed. Of course, your bearings go here, they pop in just like that, but what holds them in is really interesting. Is that there is a tunnel that a wire tie goes through. Takes a little coaxing, but as you can see, it goes through just like that. There's two on each bearing that holds the bearing in place. The bearing can't slide because it's got a stop on each end. Also with this, I went ahead and put it all together with the bolts, nuts. I went ahead and melted the nuts into this. That way it holds the nut as you're tightening it on the other side. And notice I didn't put washers because it is countersunk a little bit. This is also an M3 screw or bolt with an M3 nut in this side, and this is the tensioning mechanism for the belt. So all that is ready to go. All I need to do is pop bearings in it and put it on these rods, which I just stuck them in there. They're not adjusted or anything yet. I also need to solder some wires onto those two tabs right there so I can have a connection, and also need to mount a thermistor for temperature sensing in the middle of this. But other than that, this part is ready. I also notice that I put springs here, so if the hot end or the Z-axis does come down, it crashes into it, it won't jam. It'll push this down very easily with the spring tension. Of course, you don't want to have it to where it's gonna hit the bed. You want it at least 3 millimeters away from the heated bed, the nozzle. Okay, something else I want to show you is this is the Z-axis adjustment. I just got done making all this. So this will mount on the smooth rod right over here, and I'll have to figure out the way to mount it. Well, of course it takes bolts, but which direction? I want to be able to get to the knob easily to adjust the height. Actually, what this does, this is stationary here, this moves, so this goes up and down as you turn this bolt, and when it goes up and down, that dictates how high the Z-axis comes down onto this, or how low it goes with the opto end stop. So that's where you mount the board for the opto end stop. Okay, something else is your XL little gears that go on your motors for your X and your Y axis. You put an M3 nut and you just basically push it in there just like that. Once you get it started, then you just align the hole And then I made these from an M3 bolt. They're very hard to see. I don't know if you can see it, but I cut a little slot in there, cut the shank off a bolt, cut a little slot in it for a screw lock that screws into the nut, and then it pinches against the shaft as you turn the little screw. So it goes in just like this. And it goes into the nut. And you want this almost to be flush when it's seated all the way. You don't want to hit anything else as it turns, as the motor turns. So there it is, just there. It fit really nice. The slide is already printed. You shouldn't have to do much to it. You might have to take a razor knife and cut a little bit out, but other than that, it's there. So that gear's ready, and of course the one I have to do on this motor I haven't put in yet. The other thing is you can pop your bearings in for your stabilizer and put bolt through it, bolt and nut. Same with your bottom stabilizer. And something that I forgot to do on the last video was put nuts on both sides of this for the bottom rod. You'll have to take this rod off a little bit and actually put washers and nuts on both sides of it for the bottom. And I apologize for that. It's one of those things. I'm imperfect. Okay. Oh yes, for your X ends, I went ahead and put M3 nuts inside this. It takes 2 and 2 to hold your rod in place, and M3 bolts. The thread size on these is a 0.5. M3 for the longer bolt, and for the smaller bolts it's a 0.5 thread. And then you're gonna need some springs, but they should need a little longer than that and probably a little more tension on them to go in here. This is going to be your to take care of your end play. You're going to have a nut on top and one on the bottom, so this thing will not have any backlash. This takes care of the backlash. And of course I put a washer here with a bolt, and then I melted the nuts into that, which works really good. I use a soldering iron to do that. Just a little electric soldering iron. Once it heats up, then you just hold it to it and it melts it right in place. The way I put these nuts inside here was I took a pair of hemostats, held the nut just like this, where it holds it in place, and then I turned it upside down and held it just like that, and then screwed the bolt to it. It worked very easily, and you can actually go in all the way through and do both of them on both sides. Now that's on both X ends. So you're going to have to put these mounting nuts and bolts in for your rods, and all this does is it pushes against the rod and holds it in place so it doesn't slide. And then of course when you tighten these up, it holds the bearings in place. You have a bearing on the bottom and one on the top, so there's a little gap in between, which is fine. So this is ready to go, except for the spring that I got to get. And this one's already been put together with the rod. Your bearings are in place, and you slide back and forth. And this is probably another whole video to do the extruder. Okay, that's it for that. What else? Oh yeah, I got XL belt, about 12 feet, but it's only going to take about 8 for this unit, so it fits the gear very well, or a sprocket, or whatever you want to call it. It holds it very nice. There's no play in it or anything. And again, I'll put links to some of this stuff so you can buy it. One other thing I did do was, for these belt tensioners on your X and Y axis, I made this little thing here. It's got a slot all the way through the length of it, and I drilled a hole, and it fits right in there, and that hole will actually go to the bolt, to the end of the bolt, and that's what will put pressure on the belt. A lot of them just use the end of the screw, and I think that's, well, it's not good because it could tear the belt. So I made this to put tension on the belt rather than the bolt. It holds the belt much better. One other thing I need to mention on the all the bearings, linear bearings, I went ahead and put grease in them. I don't know if you can see the extra grease I put in or not, but it's a good idea to do that because they come from the factory lubricated, but it's real light oil. I think the best thing is to use a good grease, lubricating grease, and I mean, it gives it a much better movement. That's the grease I used right there. And it's actually a wheel bearing grease, but it's a real high heat, which doesn't matter, but just use some kind of good grease in it. Well, let's see if we can pop some bearings in. Don't have much time on this video, but all you do is just push that in there, and then you tighten it up, and that's what holds the bearing in. So next video I'll have the Y-axis mounted to it, and probably some of the other rods for the movement. I'll have some stepper motors mounted, just so it'll save time in the video, but it's something that you'll be able to see and understand how it's put together. And if you have any questions, go ahead and post them on the video sites or the YouTube channel that I'm on, and just ask me the questions and I'll be glad to answer them for you. So have a good day. Thank you for watching.